In Project 4, we're going to take a look at creating an index for a document. And you're familiar with indexes. All books that you have, your textbook, even this textbook has two indexes. There's one at the end of level 1 and again another one at the end of level 2. But indexes are basically topics that are contained in the publication or in your document, and then it provides pages where those topics are discussed. So when you create an index, it's very similar to the process that we go through to create a table of contents. We have to go through and mark the words that we want included in our index. And so anyway, we're going to go through and mark a few words within a document that we have, and then we're going to generate an index, or have the computer generated index for us. And I've already pulled up the file called DTP. I think I'm going to go ahead and save that into our coursework folder. Okay, go ahead and click save there. And excuse me. Before we begin marking the words within the document, we are going to number the pages at the bottom of each one of our pages. And I'm going to make sure, I don't think we have any section breaks in here. No. Okay, so we'll go ahead and insert and then page number. And we're at the bottom of the page, and we want to appear in the center. Okay, so we've got that showing on our two pages, and then I'm just going to double click to get out of the header and footer pane, and then we're going to go through and mark again. And maybe I should refer back. If you'll go back to page 234 for just a second, at the top of page 234 you can see the example in figure 6.9 of their sample index, and you'll notice some of the words have, like the ASCII, and under the A section, ASCII it's found on pages 22, 24, and 35. And then underneath that you see data processing and word processing. Those are sub-entries. Data processing and word processing deals with the ASCII code. Same thing with in the B section where you have back matter. Page numbering falls under the back matter category. Same thing with databases. Your main entry there is databases, but within databases you'll find fields and records. So we're going to have the same process that we'll go through in our document that we have here, the DTP document, where we'll look for words. So we're going to mark words as main entries, and then we'll also have words as sub entries under those main entries. And honestly, building indexes takes a lot of thought, and especially on the person who's authoring the report or the document or the textbook. They really have to think through what topics would be important, what the user or the reader would be considering as important topics within the document. So it does take a lot of thought before you even start and get to the process that we're in right now. The first word that we are going to mark as a main entry is software. And so you find the word that you want to mark as an entry and you just select it. And then to mark it as entry, we're going back to the References tab in the Index group, and then I'll click on Mark Entry. That brings up the Mark Index Entry dialog box. The main entry, we're going to leave that obviously as software. And for this first one, we don't have any sub-entries or anything like that. And they're not going to have us bolding and italicizing any of the page numbers, but you could certainly do that, format a little bit in here in the dialog box as you're marking them. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and click on the software. Every occurrence that we find software within our document, we want that to be added as the page numbers occur. So if software is also on page 2, we want that included obviously in our index. And so with that, for the main entry, we want to choose Mark All. Okay, I apologize for the phone again. In the Mark Entry dialog box, again, we're going to mark all for the software. and you'll notice it puts codes in there, and every occurrence of software should have a code that's been applied to that. Then we're also going to add a sub-entry, word processing, and let's see here. Right here's one. Click to select that, and then in the main entry, notice word processing comes up. It's the main entry, but we don't want word processing as our main entry. We want it to be software. And then the sub-entry would be word processing. Okay, and again we want to mark all of those, and notice it brings up software as the main one, separated with a colon, and then word processing. Okay, we're going to continue. I'm going to do a couple of these and then I'll pause it, but in step, I guess it's 3I on page 236, it talks about selecting these specific words throughout the document and assigning a main entry and a sub-entry. So that's where I'm picking up with 3I there. It says in the first paragraph, in defining desktop publishing section, which we're in right now. Okay, defining desktop publishing section. Then we're going to go to spreadsheets, and spreadsheets is going to be, select that here, spreadsheets is going to be a sub-entry of software. So again, software is our main entry, but underneath that sub-entry will be spreadsheets. And again, we're marking all. Same thing with database. There's database here, main entry, and I'm just cutting this. I'm selecting Control X, typing in software, and then on the sub-entry I'm pasting that. I don't know if that's saving much time, but I'm not typing very well today, as any day, so we'll go ahead and use the cut and paste. And then mark all. And then down in the second paragraph, it's looking as the main entries publishing. And there's, let's see, right here, just publishing. So we'll select that again. That is the main entry, so we're going to leave that as is. Mark all. And then desktop, let me go back here. Desktop says it's the main entry, but that needs to be the sub-entry. Main entry is going to be publishing. Mark all again. Main entry printer. Okay, main entry printer. Mark all those. And then lasers a sub-entry of printer. And again, we're marking all. And I'm going to go through the remainder of these, and I'm going to pause the demo as I do those. Now I've got all of the words marked for main entry or sub-entry based on what they've instructed there in item 3I. So at that point, once you have all of your items marked, we'll go ahead and close out of the Mark Index Entry dialog box. And now we're ready to create the index. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off my non-printing characters here. The index obviously appears at the end of the document, so I'm going to press Control End. We also need it to appear on a new page, so I'm going to press Control Enter. We're going to title it in the center as Index. And then back at the left margin, I'm going to go ahead and allow the computer now to generate an index for me. So again, I'm going to go back to the References tab. In the Index group, I'm going to choose Insert Index. And while I'm in there, I'm going to go ahead and format it so that it's modern. We've got some other options in here that you can choose as well. Go ahead and click OK. And now we have the index generated. Okay. So you can see publication, software, message, all these indicate the page numbers on which these particular words are found. Again, main entries are the ones at the left, and then the sub-entries are the ones that appear underneath. They also want us to apply heading 1 style to the index title. So, all right. Now in project 5, we're going to create an index again, but this time rather than marking all the words within a document, we're going to create a concordance file, and then that concordance file is going to be used to mark all the words within that document. So again, You can type in these words within a table in Word is what's happening. If you look on page 239, figure 612 is an example of a concordance file, and this has actually been created in Word. It's in a table, 2-column table, and in the first column, the words that are going to appear in your report are listed there, and they should be typed in just as they're shown in the document. For example, the first two are both capitalized, but the third one is lowercase. So those pieces, those words that you see in the first column of that table are exactly as they're going to appear in the document. Now, in the second column, that information contains the text that will appear in the index, and it also specifies whether it's a main entry or a sub-entry. And we saw a little bit of this in the, let me go back here just a minute. If we had the main entry here in software, it's separated with a colon, and the sub-entry with spreadsheets. Same concept is applying in the table on page 239. Second column, the first one that has a main entry with a sub-entry is technology, and it's separated with a colon, and then teletypewriters. Technology, motion pictures. Technology, television. So you can see the example there. If it's to be a sub-entry, you go ahead and write in the main entry followed by a colon and then your sub-entry. So again, they give you some tips on how to create that file. When you're in Word, remember by default, typically when you start a word, it always capitalizes it. So they're suggesting that you go through the proofing category in the Word Options dialog box and remove that autocorrect feature. So that's just a thought there. Once you get the table created, obviously, then you'd want to go back and turn that on, because most of the time when you're typing in sentences and words, you do want that first word to be capitalized. In Project 5A, they do go through give you steps to create the table or the concordance file in Word, and I'm going to start out with that, and then I'll pause the demonstration and fill in the rest by myself. So we're going to go to a blank document as it suggests. I'm going to turn off the show hide button, and then they do want you entering in a table. So I'm going to go to the insert tab. In the tables group, I'm going to choose table, and then we're going to generate a 2-by-1 table initially. Okay, and then as you add the words, you can just tab and it'll add rows with it. Okay. Then we're going to start out at the bottom here. Again, the first one should be lowercase. So newsletters, when I hit the space bar, notice it capitalized that first one. If I go back to that N, it should allow me to make that change. Let me try that one more time. Newsletters. Notice when I lay my mouse back on that N, if I right click on that, and left click. If I left click on the N, it should give me a drop down arrow, undo automatic capitalizations. Okay, so that's how it's going to appear in the document. And then on the right hand side, we want to make the main entry be capitalized. So we'll leave that as is. Now I just tabbed, and that takes me to the next line. We want that one capitalized, so that stays as is. So notice here now we have a lowercase and an uppercase newsletters. Both of them will be classified under the main entry newsletters that's in caps. Alright, software again is capitalized. Software is a main entry. Desktop publishing. Okay, now software is the main entry for desktop publishing, and then the sub-entry is desktop publishing. Now notice it's lowercase here. Word processing, now this is going to be lowercase. So undo capitalization. And the main entry for that is going to be software. We want it to be found under software, but the main entry obviously is word processing. Okay, and I'll go ahead and complete this, pausing the demo as I do it. Okay, as you can see, I've completed the table with all the words that were going to be used in the index, and I've also saved it as they've requested, Word Level 2, Chapter 6, Project 5, C file, concordance file. We're going to close out of this, and then they're going to have us open another document called Plan Newsletter. And this is the document where we're going to utilize our concordance file, and in that concordance file then we'll create the index. Okay, so to do that, to use the concordance file, we're going to go to the References tab, and then in the Index area we're going to go to the Insert Index, and within this we want to choose the Auto Mark. That takes us out to the Open Index Auto Mark file. We're going to go back to the area where I saved the index or the concordance. It's right here. And now it's gone through and has chosen those words in the concordance. You can see the codes that have appeared. It's gone through and marked every occurrence of newsletters, elements, all kinds of words that we put in our concordance file. Okay, so it did it for us automatically based on that word file. So we don't have to go through the entire document marking those words as we did previously. Alright, now to insert the index, we're going to go to the very end, Control End. I am going to turn off this Show Hide button. And then we're going to insert a page break, so Control Enter. And I'm going to center the word index. And then to insert the index, obviously we'll go back to the References tab, Index Group, and then Insert Index. I think they want the formal style here, so we'll go back from modern to formal, and then click OK. Alright, same situation. We've got our index, it's grouped in different letters, and main entries, for example elements, with all the sub-entries, the pages that they appear on, all included in your index. Okay, now we're going to make just a slight change to this document just to provide an example that you can update an index and it'll automatically make changes. We're going to go to the section that starts with planning a newsletter. Notice that's on page 4. We are going to force that so that it goes, it's on page 2. We're going to force that to go to page 3. So I'm going to press Control Enter, and by doing that now, that'll change our page numbers in our index. So to update the index, again I'm clicking anywhere in the index, back up on the ribbon in the index group, I'm going to choose Update Index, and that automatically makes changes to the numbers for each one of our entries. Okay, and with that, that concludes Chapter 6. The summaries on page 242 and 243. The concept check is on page 244, and the skills check, which you'll probably want to practice a few of these on your own, begin on page 244 and goes through the visual benchmarks that are on page 249. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to email me or call me.